Forget everything you think you know about success and fulfillment. The secret to achieving more might actually be to try less. This isn't about laziness. It's about understanding a profound paradox that can unlock genuine progress and inner peace. Prepare to have your perspective on effort completely transformed. You see, there's something wonderfully absurd about the human condition. We grip tighter when we want to hold on. We push harder when the door says, pull. We clench our fists around the very things we're trying to bring into being, and then we wonder why they slip through our fingers like water. Imagine you're lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you absolutely must fall asleep. Perhaps you have an important appointment tomorrow. You've counted sheep. You've tried every position. And what happens? Your eyes become wider than they've been all day. Your mind races. Every position feels wrong. You're trying so hard to fall asleep. That sleep has become absolutely impossible. This is the doorway into one of the most liberating insights you'll ever encounter. The philosopher Aldous Huxley called it the law of reverse effect. The harder we try with the conscious will to do something, the less we shall succeed. Now, doesn't that fly in the face of everything you've been taught? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Apply yourself no pain, no gain. But what if we've been looking at it backwards all along? Let me paint you a picture. A man wakes in the morning already feeling behind. Obligations pile up, work deadlines, family responsibilities, social expectations pressing in from all sides. He rushes through breakfast, his mind already at the office, rehearsing conversations, worrying about problems yet to come. His day unfolds like a series of urgent tasks strung together by anxiety, always something more to accomplish, someone to please, some goal to chase. He comes. Home exhausted, perhaps has a drink to unwind, but even then his mind won't quiet. He lies in bed reviewing failures and planning tomorrow's campaigns. Then he does it all again. We've made a virtue out of anxiety. A man who isn't constantly striving is considered lazy, unmotivated. We wear our exhaustion like medals. I've been working 16-hour days, someone says with grim pride. I haven't had a vacation in 2 years, but here's the question. Is all this trying actually getting you where you want to be, or are you just tired? There's a difference between genuine work and frantic activity that masquerades as productivity. You can be tremendously busy and accomplish very little. You can be moving constantly without actually going anywhere. The gospel we hear preaches effort as salvation. If you're not succeeding, you're simply not trying hard enough. Can't sleep? Try harder. Marriage falling apart? Put in more effort. Not content, work on improving yourself, as if fulfillment were just another project to be completed through sufficient determination. But the things we want most, love, peace, creative inspiration, joy, genuine connection, these aren't things you can grasp with clenched fists. They're not problems to be solved through force of will, and the more we approach them with that mindset, the more they evaporate. Have you noticed this? The job interview where you wanted the position so desperately that you came across anxious and uncertain. The party where you tried so hard to be witty that you became stiff and awkward. The more you wanted it, the more it slipped away. Think about the young man courting a woman. If he's too eager, too available, too obviously desperate for her affection, what happens? She pulls away. Not because she's playing games, but because there's something in human nature that recoils from desperation. Whereas the man comfortable in himself,
Who isn't grasping for validation? He's interesting. He's attractive. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's not desperate. So consider this radical possibility. What if the problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough? What if the problem is that you're trying too hard? The harder you try to grasp something, the more it eludes you. It's like trying to pick up mercury with your fingers. The more pressure you apply, the more it scatters. You cannot make yourself fall asleep. Sleep is something that happens to you, not something you do. The moment you start trying, you've introduced conscious control, and that very effort keeps you awake. Sleep comes when you let go, when you surrender or consider relaxing. You come home after a difficult day, someone says, just relax. Have you noticed how utterly useless that advice is? Because the moment you try to relax, you're creating effort, creating tension. You're tensing.
up in the very attempt to release tension. It's like trying to smooth out ripples in water by patting them down. You just create more ripples. Happiness works the same way. The pursuit of happiness is perhaps the most self-defeating pursuit there is. Happiness isn't something you achieve by aiming at it directly. Happiness is what emerges as a byproduct of being engaged in something meaningful. The instant you step back and ask yourself, am I happy? Am I enjoying this enough? You've pulled yourself out of the experience, and whatever happiness was there evaporates. Let me tell you about a writer. She sits at her desk with a pad of paper and a fountain pen, determined to write something worthwhile. She's carved out the time, arranged everything just so. She puts pen to paper, a sentence emerges, she crosses it out, another sentence. That one's no good either. The harder she tries to find the perfect words, the more forced and lifeless everything becomes. She spends the entire morning producing nothing but frustration and crumpled paper. Then days later, she's washing dishes, not thinking about writing at all, just feeling the warm water on her hands. And suddenly, there it is, the perfect opening line. The whole structure reveals itself effortlessly. What happened? The conscious effort was blocking the creative process. Her conscious mind, with all its fears and judgments, was standing in the way. Only when she stopped trying could natural creativity flow through her. There's a part of you, call it intuition, call it the unconscious, that knows how to do things spontaneously and naturally. But your conscious mind, your ego doesn't trust that. It wants to be in charge. It wants control. And so it interferes. It micromanages. It second guesses. And in doing so, it gums up the works entirely. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. When you first tried, you were thinking about everything consciously. Turn the handlebars this way. Shift your weight that way. Keep pedaling. Don't fall. It was exhausting and mostly ineffective. But then something remarkable happened. You stopped thinking about it. Your body figured it out on some deeper level. And now you can ride a bicycle while thinking about something else entirely. As the ancient Chinese philosopher Lasu said, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. The skilled pianist doesn't think about where to place each finger. They become the music. The carpenter who's been at his trade for 30 years doesn't consciously deliberate over every saw stroke. His hands know what to do. In every case, there's trust involved, trust in the natural process, trust in your deeper capacities. And that trust is exactly what gets undermined when we try too hard, when we insist on conscious control of everything. The paradox is this: you can't try to stop trying. That's just another form of trying. You can't force yourself to be effortless. You can't make yourself spontaneous. The very attempt contradicts itself. Here's the psychological trap. We believe that more effort equals more control, that if we just think harder, plan more carefully, try more intensely, we can bend reality to our will. And there's a part of us that finds this belief incredibly seductive, because the alternative, that we're not in complete control, is terrifying. Have you ever prepared for a difficult conversation? I mean, really prepared. Someone has said something that bothered you, or you need to ask your employer for a raise. So you spend hours, perhaps days, rehearsing exactly what you're going to say. You imagine their response, then prepare your counter response. You create this entire mental script, polishing your arguments, perfecting your delivery, and then the actual conversation happens, and it goes nothing like you planned. They say something you didn't anticipate. The emotional tone is completely different, and all your preparation becomes useless baggage. In fact, it might even make things worse, because you're so attached to your script that you're not actually listening to what they're saying. You're just waiting for your turn to deliver your pre-planned lines. This is the illusion of control. We think all that mental effort is helping us, but it's actually making us less responsive, less present, less able to deal with what's actually happening, or consider facing an important decision. Perhaps choosing between two job offers, or thinking about moving to a new city. So you make lists, advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. You consult everyone you know. You think about it from every angle. You lie awake at night running through scenarios. And what happens? You become paralyzed. The more you think about it, the less clear it becomes. Every option seems both appealing and terrible. You can see potential disaster in every choice. And so you do nothing, or you make a decision in such anxiety and doubt that you second guess it immediately. The overthinking, the over-planning, it's not clarifying anything. It's just creating noise. It's like stirring muddy water. The more you stir it, the muddier it gets. Sometimes you need to let it settle. This pattern shows up everywhere. In courtship and romance, you meet someone you like and you really want them to like you back. So you start trying. You carefully consider what to say, trying to appear interesting. You plan little gestures to impress them. And what comes across? Anxiety, neediness, a kind of falseness, because people can sense when you're performing. The irony is that the people we find most attractive are usually the ones who seem comfortable in their own skin, who aren't trying to impress anyone, who have that quality of natural ease. They're not working to be liked. They're just being themselves, and that's magnetic. Or think about physical performance. A man at the bowling alley in a tournament. If he's thinking too much, don't throw it in the gutter. Everyone's watching. This is so important. He'll probably throw the worst bowl of the day. The conscious mind interferes with the natural fluidity of movement. His muscles tense up. His timing gets thrown off. It's called choking under pressure. And it happens precisely because he's trying too hard. Whereas the man who bowls perfectly is the one who trusts his practice, trusts his body, and just lets it happen. He's in the groove, that state where everything flows effortlessly, where you're not thinking, you're just doing. When we try too hard, we create a war within ourselves. There's the part that wants something, and then there's another part watching ourselves want it, judging whether we're wanting it correctly, worrying about whether we'll get it. This self-consciousness creates tremendous tension, and that tension interferes with our natural capacities. It's like the centipede in the old story. Someone asks him which leg he moves first, and once he starts thinking about it, he can't walk at all. The belief that we need to consciously control everything stems from fundamental mistrust. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust the natural process. And so we grip tighter. We try harder. And the more we do this, the more things seem to go wrong, which confirms our belief that we need even more control. It becomes a vicious cycle. But here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. You're not as much in control as you think you are. And that's not a problem to be solved. That's a liberation to be embraced. So if trying too hard doesn't work, what does the answer to just give up, to become passive? Not at all. There's a concept from ancient Chinese philosophy that illuminates this perfectly. It's called wui, often translated as non-doing, but it's not about doing nothing. It's about action that flows naturally, without force, without struggle. Effortless effort. Imagine water flowing down a mountainside. The water doesn't try to reach the valley. It simply follows the path of least resistance. It encounters a boulder and flows around it without complaint. It finds the lowest points effortlessly. There's no struggle, no anxiety. The water simply does what water does. And in doing so, it accomplishes something remarkable. It shapes landscapes, nourishes life, eventually reaches the sea. It's tremendously powerful. But there's no effort in it. This is woo-wee, not lazy, supremely intelligent, not passive, responsive, action aligned with the natural way of things. Rather than fighting against the grain of reality, think about a skilled sailor on his boat. He doesn't try to make the wind blow in a certain direction. He can't control the waves or the weather, but he can adjust his sails, read the conditions, work with what is rather than fighting against what isn't. And in doing so, he harnesses forces far greater than himself. That's effortless effort. Or consider a farmer planting his crops. He doesn't make the seeds grow. He can't force the wheat to ripen or command the rain to fall. What he does is create the conditions. He tills the soil, plants at the right time, weeds the garden, and then he trusts the natural process. He works with nature, not against it. He knows that all the straining and worrying in the world won't make those seeds sprout one day sooner. Artists understand this deeply. When a painting is going well, you're not laboriously deciding where each brush stroke goes. The brush moves almost by itself. You're in dialogue with the canvas. There's flow, spontaneity. You're creating, but it doesn't feel like work. It feels like play, like discovery. You're as surprised by what emerges as anyone else would be. Musicians know this feeling too. The jazz player in the middle of an improvisation isn't thinking, now play this note, then this one. That would sound mechanical, dead. Instead, they're responding to the other musicians, to the mood in the room, to something they can feel, but not quite name. The music flows through them. Lassus understood this perfectly. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. You're fully engaged, fully active, even intensely so. But there's no strain, no internal resistance. You're not fighting yourself or fighting the situation. You're moving with it like a dancer moves with a partner. First, by simply recognizing when we're in our own way. Notice the tension. Notice when you're trying too hard. Notice that tightness in your chest. That endless chatter in your mind, that feeling of pushing against a brick wall, just noticing it without judgment is the first step. Second, by trusting the process more and obsessing about the outcome less. When you're fixated on a specific result, you become rigid. You're not responding to what's actually happening. You're trying to force reality to match your mental picture. But when you're engaged with the process itself, when you're present with what you're doing, rather than worried about where it's leading, there's a natural flow. A gardener doesn't try to make a plant grow faster. He creates the conditions for growth, good soil, adequate water, proper sunlight, and then he trusts the plant to do what plants naturally do. He works with the nature of the plant, not against it. Third, by letting go of perfectionism. Perfectionism is just another form of trying too hard. It's the belief that if you just control every detail, everything will turn out exactly right. But life is messier than that. Reality is imperfect. And often the most beautiful things emerge from accidents, from mistakes, from unexpected turns. A potter working at his wheel knows this. He has a general idea of what he wants to create, but he's also responsive to how the clay behaves under his hands. If he's too rigid, if he tries to force the clay into an exact predetermined shape, the pot will be lifeless. But if he works with the clay, feeling its properties, responding to its nature, something alive emerges. And finally, by cultivating presence, being fully here now rather than lost in thoughts about past or future, because effortless action can only happen in the present moment. It's spontaneous. It's alive. When you watch a cat stretching in the afternoon sun, there's no effort there. Yet the movement is complete, perfect, in its own way. The cat isn't trying to stretch correctly or worrying about whether it's stretching enough. It's just stretching. That's the quality we're pointing toward. This doesn't mean you never plan, never prepare, never practice. The concert pianist who plays effortlessly has practiced scales for thousands of hours. The difference is that when they're actually performing, they're not trying. They've put in the work and now they trust it. So effortless effort is not about avoiding work. It's about your relationship to the work. It's about whether you're fighting every step or flowing with it. It's about whether you're gripping so tight that your hands cramp or holding things lightly enough that they can move and breathe naturally. Let's ask the deeper question. What are we actually after? What's all this effort in service of? The conventional answer is success and fulfillment. We want to get ahead in life, to make something of ourselves, to achieve security and respect. Success means a good job, a comfortable home, money in the bank, the respect of neighbors. Fulfillment means achieving your goals, raising a family, reaching some imagined state of permanent contentment. But I want to suggest that this whole framework might be backwards. Because if success is something you have to constantly strive for, constantly prove, constantly defend and maintain, then you never actually arrive anywhere. You're always on your way to somewhere else, never quite here, and that's exhausting. Real fulfillment isn't a destination you reach after sufficient effort. It's not something you'll have once you achieve X, Y, and Z. It's a quality of being, a way of engaging with life, and it's available right now in this moment, regardless of your circumstances or accomplishments. There's a wonderful Zen story about a monk who's asked, "What did you do before enlightenment?" He says, "I chopped wood and carried water." "And what do you do after enlightenment?" "I chopped wood and carried water." The same activities, but everything's different because he's no longer doing them to get somewhere else. He's fully present with chopping wood and carrying water. And in that presence, there's a kind of fulfillment that doesn't depend on external achievement. External goals matter. Of course, a man has to make a living, support his family, contribute something to the world. But the question is, Are you engaged with your life as it actually is? Or are you constantly straining towards some future moment when you'll finally be allowed to relax and be satisfied? Because here's the thing. That moment never comes. There's always another goal, another milestone, another achievement that needs to be reached before you can finally rest. It's like chasing the horizon. The faster you run toward it, the farther away it remains. What if fulfillment isn't about getting somewhere, but about waking up to where you already are? What if success isn't about accumulating achievements, but about engaging fully with life as it unfolds? This requires a radical shift. Instead of constantly asking, what am I trying to achieve? What should I be doing? Am I doing enough? You begin to ask, what's actually happening here? What is this situation calling for? Instead of imposing your will on reality, you learn to listen to what's actually going on. Instead of forcing your way forward with gritted teeth, you begin to feel for the path of least resistance, the natural way forward. Here's something practical. The next time you notice yourself trying really hard at something, really straining, really pushing, pause for a moment. Just pause. Take a breath. Feel your body, notice the tension, and then ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I stop trying so hard? Because beneath all this effort, there's usually fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of what people will think, fear of losing control. And we believe that if we just try hard enough, we can keep that fear at bay. But you can't. The fear doesn't go away through more effort. It actually increases, because the more you try to control everything, the more you're reinforcing the belief that disaster is just around the corner. So what if you experimented with letting go just a little bit in some relatively safe situation? Try trying less, see what happens. Maybe in a conversation, instead of carefully planning what to say, you just listen and respond naturally. Maybe at work, instead of over-analyzing every decision, you trust your experience and intuition more. Maybe in your creative pursuits, instead of aiming for perfection, you allow yourself to play, to experiment, to make glorious mistakes. Pay attention to the difference between effort that's truly helpful and effort that's counterproductive. There are times when sustained effort is appropriate, when you're learning a new skill, when you're overcoming a genuine difficulty. Hard work has its place, but even then there's a qualitative difference. There's the straining kind, which has a quality of desperation, of trying to prove something, of never being quite enough as you are. And then there's the dedicated kind, which has a quality of commitment without attachment, of giving your all while remaining at peace with whatever comes. The question isn't, should I try or should I not try? It's, am I in harmony with what I'm doing, or am I fighting myself every step of the way? And here's the liberating truth. When you stop trying to force life to conform to your narrow plans, life becomes richer, more interesting, more full of possibilities you never imagined, because you're no longer locked into rigid ideas about how things should be. You're open to what wants to emerge. The writer who stops trying to write something impressive and just writes honestly often produces her best work. The man who stops desperately trying to find happiness and starts engaging fully with his life as it is often finds a contentment he wasn't expecting. This is the paradox coming full circle. The more you let go, the more you gain. The less you try, the more you succeed. Not mechanically, not as a guaranteed formula, but often enough that it's worth paying very close attention to. So here we are. Understanding this paradox intellectually is one thing that's easy enough. Living it, embodying it, allowing it to transform how you move through the world. That's something else entirely. Think about your breath. You breathe in and then you breathe out. But notice there's a moment between the in-breath and the out-breath where nothing at all is happening. A moment of stillness, of emptiness, of pause. And yet that moment is essential. Without it, you'd suffocate. Life is like that too. There's action and rest, effort and ease, doing and being, movement and stillness. Our culture glorifies only one side of this natural rhythm, the doing, the trying, the constant motion. But we forget about the other side, the quiet side where everything resets and renews, where energy gathers, where new possibilities gestate before they emerge into light. What if you thought of your life less like a ladder to climb and more like breathing? There's a time to draw in, to receive, to be open, and there's a time to give forth, to act, to express. but neither is superior to the other. They're part of the same rhythm, the same dance. The law of reverse. Effect isn't telling you to never make an effort. What it's doing is inviting you to notice when your trying has become counterproductive, when you're gripping so tight that you're strangling the very thing you want to bring to life. It's asking you to consider the possibility that you might already be enough just as you are, that you don't have to prove anything to anyone, that there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you that needs to be fixed through heroic effort. What would your life look like if you stopped treating it as a problem to be solved and started experiencing it as a mystery to be lived? I don't know the answer to that question, neither do you. And that's the beautiful part, because the answer isn't something I can give you or you can figure out through more thinking. It's something that reveals itself when you stop trying so hard to find it. So here's my invitation. Notice. Simply notice when you're trying too hard. Notice the tension in your body, the strain in your mind, the way you're fighting against yourself. And in that noticing, something might shift. Not because you made it shift, but because awareness itself has a transformative quality. Be gentle with yourself. This isn't another item for your to-do list. You're not trying to become someone who doesn't try too hard. See how that's just more of the same trap. You're simply becoming aware of a pattern. And then experiment. Play with this. See what happens when you hold things a little more lightly, when you trust a little more and control a little less.